Hello everyone, GoldenNova here, and it's time to rush back into Rush Duels. You can tell when the TCG starts drying up with new releases, but I'm thankful for the break. Being able to dip my toes into the Ultimate Flag and Hero Rush cards has been a wonderful opportunity to see how a radical rethinking of Yu-Gi-Oh can change how cards are designed. And on recommendation from my editor Pillock, I'm taking a plunge into the Rush card pool once again to cover a theme used by one of Seven's anime duelists. Wielded by Asana Mutsuba of the Mutsuba Heavy Machinery Company, Constructors are here to clear out the field to make a strong foundation to build their victory on. It's got big bruisers, field spells, and the first maximum monster I get to cover on the channel. So have your permits ready and check your forklift certification, cause it's time for Constructors Explained. Today's episode is possible thanks to viewers like you, as well as my patrons. If you like what I do here, I would super appreciate it if you'd subscribe to help us reach another wonderful milestone video. And if you want to support me directly while getting some awesome benefits, check out the link to my Patreon in the description below. So, what's the deal with Constructors? Well, they're a series of Earth attribute worm-type monsters that have an affinity for punching really hard and synergizing with field spells. I mean, they do need a place to do all their construction work at, after all. We'll be roping in the most impactful series of field spells, the Blisstopias, as part of the spell section of the video, but for now, just know that we've got a few good support ones we can leverage for whenever our monsters mention field spells. First up, let's talk about our requisite normal monsters, cause it's Rush. We've always got to have some normal monsters. First up is Constructor Princess Pylon, a level 1 monster with 100 attack and 0 defense. The princess of the worms that live in Blisstopia. She cherishes the bonds she has with her precious friends. This seems very lackluster for Rush Duel standards, but don't worry, there is a purpose. We'll need Princess Pylon for fusion-related reasons later on. Constructor Soldier Drillzard is a level 3 monster with 1100 attack and 800 defense. A humanoid reincarnated from a dragon. His masterful strategy and deft hands help reduce construction times considerably. Then there's Constructor Warrior Shovlon, a level 4 monster with 1500 attack and 0 defense. A young warrior. Each day, he passionately uses his shovel to dig up work sites. Moving up to the next tribute bracket, we have Constructor Battler Big Roller, a level 6 monster with 1900 attack and 600 defense. He uses 6 types of rollers in his work, but layman cannot tell the difference between them. And because every deck needs to have a level 7 monster in this format, we've got Constructor Demolisher Worm Drake Crush, who has 2400 attack and 1900 defense. A constructor worm enveloped in specialized construction gear. It is said that no matter the size of the project, the worm could demolish the site in one blow. These vanillas help bridge the gap between our other cards, or act as payoffs for some of our other abilities. Honestly, I'm just happy to see that royalty is getting their hands dirty to help build things up. Don't see that very often. Maybe the constructors vote on their monarchs, like how they do it on Naboo. How does that even work? Alright, now let's cover our effect monsters. Constructor Desk Worker Tarask is a level 1 monster with 200 attack and 100 defense. Its requirement is sending a card from your hand to the graveyard, with the effect sending the top 3 cards of your deck to the grave. Then you can add a fusion or a field spell card from your graveyard to your hand. Remember, fusion is the name of the primary fusion spell in Rush. But you can only attack with worm-type monsters this turn. This card is our recovery expert. The deck has some pretty good fusions, so getting back the spell that enables them is going to be pretty important. And the same could be said for our field spells, though in a more broad sense, since we aren't at the point where Rush fusions take generic monsters, mostly. But what throws me for a loop here is that the Tarask is regarded as one of the most terrifying creatures in all of tabletop gaming. Immune to all but the most vicious and potent assaults, can crush civilizations in an instant, requires celestial magic beyond the bounds of mortal comprehension just to keep these things dead. And here it is doing administrative tasks for a construction company. Well, I guess we've all got to get back on the clock eventually. Constructor Sapper Draftanium is a level 3 monster with 500 attack and 1000 defense, whose effect can be activated the turn it's normal summoned, letting you excavate the top card of your deck and placing it either on the top or bottom of your deck. This one is not quite as useful. Like, bypassing a draw that you wouldn't like can be good, but it doesn't actually advance anything about your deck. Granted, I'm writing this as part of the first draft, so it may just prove to be useful later on, so either I keep this in and I'm calling it like a pro analyst, or I forget to come back to this section and fix it so I can bait comment interaction. We'll see how it goes later. Picklon, the Constructor Fairy, is a level 3 monster with 200 attack and 1000 defense, and its effect requires us to send a Wyrm-type monster from your hand to the grave, with the effect drawing us a card. Now, in the game that lets you draw up to 5 every turn, effects like these seem pretty lackluster, but they do serve an important purpose. We get to move cards that function better in the graveyard into it, while maintaining our hand advantage for the turn. You may even draw into the combo piece that you were looking for. You'll want to tribute it off as soon as possible though, because it's such a wayfish little thing, but I guess that's what happens when you mix Wyrms and fairies. We're not exactly getting the best of both worlds here. Constructor Driver Soldier Traylon is a level 4 monster with 1000 attack and 0 defense. Its effect requires you to have no other monsters on your field, and it adds an Earth attribute Wyrm-type maximum monster from your grave to your hand. Then, if you have a level 7 or higher Wyrm-type monster in your graveyard, you can add a maximum monster from your grave to your hand. Now this is a support card, wow! One of the problems with maximum summoning is that you need to have all of the pieces in your hand at once to get, well, maximum value out of them. And since that means taking up 3 of the 5 cards in your hand, that can be pretty daunting. Sometimes you end up pitching or summoning the individual pieces to help enable other cards, but with Traylon, you can do both. As long as you have a single piece in your hand and the other 2 complementary ones are in your graveyard, with a level 7 or higher Wyrm being in there of course, you can pluck them out of your graveyard and boom! You've got all the pieces to summon your big boss, and that's a really valuable asset, even if it is being incredibly reckless while doing so. Like, if it's using one hand to get all of this accomplished, that means that both of its hands aren't on the steering wheel, and that's gotta be a big heavy machine violation for sure. Constructor Fighter Mixer is a level 4 monster with 1200 attack and 400 defense, whose effect requires there to be a face-up card in the field spell zone, and can be activated the turn it's normal summoned. This effect sends the top card of your deck to the graveyard, then, if you sent a Wyrm-type normal monster to the grave by this effect, you can draw a card. This feels like it's supposed to work alongside Draftanium. Like, you look at the top card of your deck, and if it's a normal monster, you keep it up there and deploy Mixer to get that draw. If it's not, you can tuck that card under your deck and hope that the next card is a normal that Mixer can hit for that draw. But I'd rather see something that can guarantee the top deck setup with more certainty. Honestly, for a card that seems to want the structure and assurance of a known top deck, I feel like this card is the one that would least appreciate things getting mixed up. Constructor Sentry Dragline is a level 4 monster with 1000 attack and 1300 defense, whose effect requires you to shuffle 3 Wyrm-type monsters from your grave into your deck. It special summons a level 8 Wyrm-type monster from your grave face up to your field. Then, if you special summon Constructor Wyrm Build Dragon by this effect, you can add a Wyrm monster with 0 defense from your grave to your hand. Now, how much utility that has outside the theme, I don't really know. I leave that to all the rush heads in the audience to clue us in. But in theme, we still have fantastic targets. 2 of our normal monsters fit the bill, Princess Pylon and Warrior Shovelon, both of whom are necessary fusion materials for cards coming up later, as well as Soldier Traylon, the one that's really good at setting up our maximum monsters. Granted, this is going to take a lot of Wyrms being in your graveyard to use effectively. You've already got to shuffle back 3 of them, then you need a level 8 target on top of that, and then you also need an additional one with 0 defense if you want to get full value out of it. So don't be shy about using Picklon to pitch your Wyrms, or tributing them off for bigger monsters, because you're going to need as much raw material as possible to forge this effect. Not that it can use those drag shovels to pick up very much by itself. The fingers on there might have helped with finer details and moving other pieces of machinery, but nothing's going to beat the sheer carrying capacity of the scoop! Speaking of level 8 Wyrm monsters, let's take a look at Constructor Wyrm Build Dragon, the one you need to summon to make the most out of Dragline. It's got 2500 attack and 2000 defense, whose effect requires there to be a face-up field spell on the field, and it special summons a Wyrm-type normal monster from your grave face-up to your field. So hey, once per turn you get back one of your vanillas, and with cards like Big Roller and Drake Crush, we can add some serious power to our offensive lineup. Now, this may seem counter to the idea the art is trying to portray, since it's all about smashing stuff, but it's actually a pretty good team player. After all, you've got to build dragging your team up so you can break down your opponents. Constructor Skywyrm Gantry Dragon is a level 8 monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, whose effect also requires there to be a face-up card in the field zone, which special summons Constructor Wyrm Build Dragon from your grave face up to your field, but this turn you can only attack with Wyrm-type monsters. Oh, so you can summon Gantry, get Build Dragon, and then you can get another normal. Cool to see that we have a few different lines of play that can establish our win condition. So big ups for having a backup plan. Now, can we please do some work on designing this thing differently so it doesn't look like a horse? I'm not the only one here, right? This looks like it should be doing racing tests or something. Infinite Heavy Cavalry Build Dragoon is a level 10 monster with 2500 attack and 0 defense that you can tribute summon an attack position with only 1 tribute as long as that tribute is a maximum monster. Its effect requires you to have 10 or more cards in your deck, and the only monsters in your graveyard being Wyrms. So don't try to get funky with splashing in outside monster support. The effect itself draws you a card, then you can fusion summon by sending Worm-type monsters from your hand or field to the graveyard as material. So while this card isn't a Constructor itself, this is essentially an alternate form of the deck's maximum monster, which you can deploy if for some reason that other version doesn't cut it. Though granted, it does say you contribute 1 maximum monster. They don't have to be in maximum mode, so if you get one of the tiny ones out there, deploying this is actually fairly simple. Though don't worry if you don't have any maximums on hand, you can still tribute summon this as normal. The effect itself is pretty fantastic, filling up your hand with more options and giving you an effect on par with the legendary card Polymerization. Granted, this effect only fusion summons using Wyrm monsters, but you're running the deck like that anyway, so it's not really an issue. And bonus, it's another 0 defense Wyrm you can return to your hand with a Dragline. This is a pretty solid option to have in your back pocket, but I would be cautious about using the term infinite while having the aesthetics of giant pieces of construction equipment. I can think of at least one TCG theme that might feel like you're stepping on their toes with that one. Alright, that does it for most of our monsters. Now let's talk about the fusions and the maximums. Starting us off, we've got Construction Chief Wyrm Hand Toulon, a level 7 monster with 2500 attack and 1300 defense, requiring Constructor, Worker, Shovelon, and Picklon the Constructor Fairy as material. Its effect requires you to send the top card of your deck to the grave, which gives this card a 200 attack boost until the end of the turn. Then, if a face-up field spell card is not on the field, you can add Peaks of Blistopia or a Silver Mountain of Blistopia from your grave to your hand, which are both field spell cards we'll talk about later. So if those cards have been blasted away by your opponent, Hand Toulon can get one back into your hand to not only enable your other Constructor effects, but take advantage of the field spell's own traits as well. In fact, if you want to cycle through your field spells but still want to have access to the one you overwrote, be sure to set your field spell card face down first. That way, there's a window where you no longer have a face-up field spell card, letting Hand Toulon grab the field spell out of your graveyard, and then you can flip the field spell up as normal. With a Hand Toulon of this size, you'll be digging up combos like that left and right. Infinite Constructor Wyrm Build Dream is a level 9 monster with 3000 attack and 2500 defense, requiring Constructor Wyrm Build Dragon and Constructor Princess Pylon as material. Its requirements need you to send 1 card from your field zone to the graveyard to destroy 2 monsters on your opponent's field. Oh wow, you know, never mind. If we want to get rid of our field spell to use Hand Toulon's effect, we can just use this. This effect is brutal, potentially clearing out 2/3 of your opponent's field before you even enter the battle phase. And with the recycling provided by Hand Toulon, you can do this turn after turn after turn, an onslaught of removal and subsequent damage that I'm sure few decks can stand against. Good grief, Pylon here means business. At this point, I kinda do wish their princess was in another construction vehicle. And now, the true might of the Constructors is unveiled. Time to rip up the earth and grind mountains to dust. From this rubble, construct a new path of domination. Maximum Summon! Wyrm Excavator, the Heavy Cavalry Draco! Its core card is a level 10 monster with 2500 attack and 0 defense, much like Build Dragon, but while in maximum mode, that attack jumps up to 3500, and while in maximum mode, this card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's trap card effects. As for the left and right pieces, both of them are level 3 monsters with 800 attack and 0 defense. While in maximum mode, the left card boosts Heavy Cavalry Draco's attack by 300 for each card in your hand, while the right side lets you place a card from your graveyard on the bottom of your deck to destroy a spell or trap card on either side of the field and draw a card. And if a field spell card was destroyed by this effect, you can also draw an additional card. So for pulling off such an outstanding summon, you get a gigantic monster that can clear out back row and gives you the opportunity to trade out your field spell, or even an opponent's, for even more card draw, further synergizing with the attack boost effect. If you keep a grip of 5 cards, Heavy Cavalry Draco is sitting at a whopping 5000 attack. Truly, this card is a menace, and with a very limited range of ways to get rid of this, your best chance of beating this is by putting the Constructor player in the ground before they can get their zoning permits. Though, for the life of me, I can't imagine what kind of building needs to be made using this level of excavation equipment. What, are they trying to make the orb too? Alright, that does it for the monsters. Now it's time for the spells and traps. Constructor Art Build Destruction is a normal spell card that gives all phase-up level 7 or higher worm-type normal monsters on your field 600 attack until the end of this turn. Then, you can make all face-up monsters with 3000 or more attack on your opponent's field lose 1200 attack until the end of this turn. So on theme, this only really boosts Drake Crush. And after doing a cursory glance of the card pool, the only other one that could possibly benefit from this is Phantasm Spiral Dragon, another TCG import card. It's even a legend, good for it. I do appreciate that it gets Drake Crush to a respectable 3100 attack, and then debuffs anything that it would be able to deal with in battle by a fair amount. Like, if you're in the mirror match, this actually has a shot of letting Drake Crush take down a maximum summoned Heavy Cavalry Draco, as long as the opponent isn't holding too many cards in their hand. And for that utility alone, it may be worth playing, but otherwise seems pretty situational. Which is a shame. I would have loved to see more about the art of Destroy, Build, Destruction. Constructor Sword Foreman is a normal spell card that requires there to be a face-up field spell card on the field. It changes a defense position monster on your opponent's field to attack position, and if the monster changed to face-up attack position by this effect was a normal monster, you can draw a card. That's right, we're printing Stop Defense here, but for good reason. See, I had a lot of good things to say about Heavy Cavalry Draco. There was something that was amiss. Despite the titanic attack power, didn't have any piercing damage to help get through defense position monsters, meaning all that power could be stopped in its tracks by a single blocker. And because maximum monsters take up your whole field, it's not like you can run out any smaller attackers to help break through. But that's where Sword Foreman comes in, forcing a monster into attack position so you get some damage in. It even has a bit of card draw just in case your opponent tries to throw some inconsequential normal monsters in the way to save their more impactful cards for later. The arrogant fool! They are ignorant of the power granted to us by the almighty Shovel Knight! Man, that guy really does show up everywhere. Constructor Arsenal Wormyard is a field spell card that, while this card is face-up in the field zone, all face-up Constructor Worm Build Dragons and level 10 Worm-type monsters on the field gain 600 attack, and they inflict piercing battle damage. Oh. Okay, well that helps solve the piercing problem. Never mind. It even gives a pretty hearty attack boost. Even without any cards in hand, Heavy Cavalry Draco goes up to 4100 in maximum mode, and can even be a threat in its non-maximum version if you're in a pinch. Despite feeling a little embarrassed for going to bat so hard for Sword Foreman when this exists, it's good to know that we have options to handle different situations. I mean, look how EP Heavy Cavalry Draco is in this art. I think it's best we let them have some rest and let the Foreman handle it this time. Autumn Leaves of Blistopia is a field spell card that you can only activate by placing a Worm-type monster from your grave on top of your deck. And while this card is face-up on the field, face-up Worm-type monsters on the field gain 300 attack and inflict piercing battle damage. Okay, so is just everything gonna come out of the woodworks with piercing now? Oh, like I said, redundancy isn't the worst thing to have in your deck. And this time around, it gives piercing to all of our monsters, not just our big ones, meaning this works better with a fusion-focused version of the deck. Another cool thing is that it synergizes with Fighter Mixer, helping to ensure that the top card of your deck is a Worm normal monster so you can get that draw. Which I suppose also gives Sapper some utility, like you put that card on the bottom of your deck instead of staying on top so you don't have to see it when you go for a regular draw, but that's less of a combo and more like you're sweeping problems under the rug, and I don't get full combo by putting off doing the dishes now, don't I? Peaks of Blistopia is a field spell card that, while face-up in the field zone, gives face-up Worm-type monsters on the field 400 attack, but they lose 400 defense. This is a nice, straightforward field spell with a drawback that doesn't really matter, cause our defenses sucked big time anyway. This is a good in-between card to play to amp up your general constructors, before moving on to more specialized ones once you've developed your game plan, and is a joy to watch in the meantime. It's the only place where you can go see the world's most messed up flamingos. The miracles of nature truly never cease. Silver Mountain of Blistopia is a field spell card that requires your opponent to have a face-up level 7 or higher monster on their field to apply this effect, which is, while this card is face-up in the field zone, both players contribute summon level 7 or higher worm-type monsters in attack position with only one tribute. So if your opponent has a big monster, your big monsters are easier to deploy. But then your opponent can also summon their big monsters for cheaper, and, well, I guess this has some kind of usage. You could play this during your own turn and then swap it out for another field spell before the opponent has a chance to utilize the benefits themselves. And it's not like we're lacking for field spells, but with all the good special summoning utilities we have, this feels like it's solving a problem that's not very prevalent. Build Dragon becomes a bit easier to summon, sure, but only if our opponent is accomplishing their own game plan, and I'm not very fond of that. In fact, I would go so far as to say that it's no good. Vegetation of Blistopia is a field spell card that you can only activate if you have face-up monsters on your field whose total levels equal 10 or more, and while face-up in the field zone, all face-up non-Earth attribute monsters on the field lose 300 attack and defense. That's not an insignificant debuff when it comes to rush duels, at least I feel like that's the case, but that feels like a lot of hoops to jump through for a card that may not even do anything. Like, is Earth still one of the most common attributes in Rush? Does this card just do nothing to a majority of the card pool? I don't know, I just feel like all the other field spells do more, while this one is asking for more and giving less. We've got a Valley of Abundance and Plenty here, but all this card wants to do is veg out. Constructor Ambush is a normal trap card that you can activate when an opponent's monster declares an attack targeting your face-up worm-type monster on your field, sending a level 6 or lower worm-type monster from your hand to the grave, which causes the attacking monster to lose attack equal to the attack of the monster sent to the grave to meet this card's requirement until the end of this turn. So we have a pretty substantial combat trick here, even if it is a little costly. You end up losing a trap card and a monster in hand, and that monster needs to have enough oomph to make the activation worthwhile. But when we're talking about a swing of potentially 1,000 attack in a game where people go to bat for bonuses that are about 200 to 400, you've got yourself a pretty nasty surprise on your hands. Besides, we want to toss these big gremlins into the graveyard, we can just pick them up later. The real ambushes revealing the cost was actually the setup the whole time. Constructor Blockade is a normal trap card that you can activate when your opponent normal summons a level 7 or higher monster, sending a face-up worm-type monster from your field to the grave. This has you choosing a face-up monster on your opponent's field, and this turn, your opponent can't attack with monsters of the same type as that monster. This effectively blocks one monster from attacking, at least, and if you're up against a mono-type deck, which seems to be the norm in this game, you're basically blanking the entire battle phase. I'm not a fan that you have to give up an on-field worm, it's kind of like giving your opponent a bit of what they were hoping for, but you get to pick the monster that leaves, so you can trade a small weak monster to keep all of your important creatures safe for the turn. Unless your opponent is crafty and decides to branch out into different typing, though if they make a move to attack you, that's basically the same as breaking a picket line, and I don't know many monsters that would risk being a scab to do a little damage. Constructor Resurrection is a normal trap card that you can activate when a level 7 or higher worm-type monster on your field is destroyed by an opponent's attack. You choose a level 7 or higher worm-type monster in your grave and special summon it face up to your field. So hey, delayed Monster Reborn, but only for your really big monsters. Oh, that's fine by me. Getting back our biggest beaters is a great way to ensure we stay in the fight and can keep the pressure on. Build Dragon can keep getting us free normal monsters, and Gantry can keep getting us back Build Dragon, while Dragoon can draw us cards and make more fusions. And oh god, it can bring back our fusions! This will definitely serve you well in deflecting your opponent's blows, and if you play your cards right, you can still take out the insurance claim on your wrecked machines while enjoying your new ones. Think of the value! Alright, that's all the Constructor cards, but what do we do with them? Well, we've got a theme with a couple different win conditions you can push for. You can either go for broke and assemble a truly awe-inspiring maximum monster, or assemble the cards you need for fusion and take over the field that way. No matter what you choose, you're going to need a lot of card selection to make it happen, and the right field spells to get you where you're going. So any support at the intersection of Wyrm and field spell is going to be key. So what can we play to help them out? Well, in terms of card selection, Legendary Scale Ruler is a fine choice, using up itself and a Wyrm in hand to draw 2 cards, filtering your options while setting up your graveyard. Buried Shield also feels like it was made specifically for Constructors. When your opponent normal summons a monster, you place a field spell card from your grave on the bottom of your deck to change that monster to face down defense position, and you can boost one of your Wyrms by 500 attack and defense, for the turn at least. That's just downright evil. Are you saying I can make my monster buffer while also hitting my opponent with Book of Moon? Savage. But it's hard to overlook how nasty Demolisher Wyrm Roar is. When your opponent normal summons a level 7 or higher monster, while you have a face-up level 7 or higher normal monster on your field, you destroy that normal summoned monster. You basically get to the finish line first for making gigantic monsters, then pull the ladder up from behind you, destroying everyone else trying to get on your level. What about some good legend cards we can play? Well, when it comes to card selection, I can hardly think of a better card to help with that than Graceful Charity. You see 3 more cards, and you put the best 2 into your grave. Like, it's banned in the TCG for a reason, it's hard to pass up. Picking a monster is tough because everything that's not a worm will mess with the Dragoon's own effect, and the free draw infusion is really good. But we could try running Phantasm Spiral Dragon, even though it's not an earth monster, because it does otherwise have synergy with our deck, and the stat line is pretty slick. And to fill the trap card slot, Sixth Sense is a great way to tempt fate. Pick a high number and either draw a lot of cards or fill up your grave a bit. As for a silly tech pick, Priestess of Star Salvation fits the bill. Granted, its effect only works if we have a level 9 monster, which means it has to combo with Build Dream specifically, but because their requirement is to shuffle a fusion back into our deck, we'll have 1 loaded after making Build Dream. It draws us a card, and it gives our field a 400 attack boost per monster. So we get back a fusion spell, get a little buff, and fill out our hand. Not a bad pile of benefits all wrapped into one. And that's all I've got to say about Constructors. It's cool to see this kind of gameplay get explored. Sure, there's a strong skeleton of a powerful aggressive beatdown deck here, but the ways we have to achieve that leave room for customization. Do you go down the road of maximum summoning? Or fusion summoning? Which field spell speaks to you the most? How deep should you invest in your normal monster pool? The tools and materials you have are as varied as those of a craftsperson, each card representing not only a desire for victory, but how that victory should be achieved, what path that triumph will take. It really is what dueling is all about. Well, that and picking the perfect material. I think marble will work well for this backsplash, don't you? But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are Constructors built to last, or are their structures not up to code? And which one's your favorite? The Dragoon is looking pretty cool, but I do have a soft spot for Tarrasque. Let me know your favorite down below, and if you haven't already, please be sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, be sure to click on one of my videos in the sidebar to help me show up on your homepage, and be sure to share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode is brought to you by Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales that even come with their own lore, and save 5% on your order by using the coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. It was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commanders, Upstairs Media, and Simic Toadstool, Nebula Navigators, 3rd Dynasty, 50 Gigabytes, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajdel, Ancient Wizard, Andrew Newman, Battle Axe, King Senpai, Charlie Mercury, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Comrade Copperbottom, Dr. Reaper, Eric, Frankie, Garland Chaos, Green Knight, Great Big Pillock, Groog, Hair Bear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Carp, Marion James E. Picata, Mean King, Millennia Asta, Muse Clark, Neon Yaminair, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Bat Boos, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, Sonic 21 Blast, The Critic of Innocence, Thievery Coast, and the Wizard Moose, Cosmic Crusaders Ally Vatnia, Animasta, Anthorak, A Random Pup, Blaze Rider, Blitzwolf, Jazz Ghost, Christopher Fuss, again, Chris B, Cool Trainer Dark, Divine Dragon Felgrind 4123, Dr. Reaper RIP, again, Eki Bullock, Eva Padilla, Herbal D, Inblink, Kale the Dragon, Lobomaru 02, Manga Pages, Martin Moore 2468, Natiel Lee Alexander, Nitromo, Not Al Gore, Nyx, Obsidian, Pombo, Rhyme Kairos, Shizuka Nijimura, Sir Knight JCB, Sphelia, Stephen Huntsman, Stephen Williamson, The Legendary Raven, The Phantom Knights of Shitted Pants, The Queen of Time, The Gene, Tiger X2476, Tristan O'Meara and Zaldreka, as well as the lovely Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits and other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you would check out the link to my Patreon down in the description, or consider joining as a YouTube member. And if you want to see more of what Rush has to offer, check out this video where I cover Ultimate Flag. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.